In this video, I'm going to be modeling for you how to solve for the value of a variable. So a variable is just the unknown value in an equation. In the past, we've always seen the variables at the end of an equation here like this, the result after multiplying or the result after dividing, or the product and the quotient here. Well, now a variable can be in any spot. It can be the dividend, it can be the divisor, it can be the quotient, it can be a factor, or it can be a product. So we're going to go through some ideas of what you can do to solve for a variable. We will also see that variables now can be represented with symbols and they can be represented with letters. But the whole idea is, where is my variable and what do I need to do to find it? You'll know that you found the correct value of the variable if both sides of the equal sign are equal. So here, for example, 5 groups of 2 is 10, has a value of 10, so this variable would equal 10. 28 divided into 4 groups has a value of 7, so this variable has a value of 7. Both sides of the equal sign are equal. When I'm looking to figure out the value of a variable, there are 3 things that I might do. And I'll show you some specifics when we go through these examples. But one thing I might do is I might move my equation around, because sometimes the equation doesn't look the way that I'm used to it looking. Or I might use the operation that is given in the equation, or I might use an inverse. So I'm going to show you a few examples of all of those. So let's look here at our first example. 24 is equal to 8 groups of something here, or 8 times something. So this is my variable. This question mark, this symbol is my variable. Now, when I look at this, this is not typically how I see multiplication. I'm used to the expression being on the left and the result being on the right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the equation around so that it makes better sense to me. And that is something you can do. And it's something that I recommend. So I'm going to cross out the simple part of the equation and move that over. If you try moving over the expression, sometimes you move things around, and with multiplication that's not such a big deal, but with division it can completely change the meaning of the equation. So that's why I just always recommend moving the simple part. So now this looks more like the multiplication I'm used to. 8 times something equals 24. What that really means is 8 groups of something equals 24. So now I can either use that operation of multiplication or I can use an inverse. I'm going to show you both. So 8 groups of something. So I'm going to go ahead and make my 8 groups. And then I don't know how many go in each group, but I know that if I take the 24 and give it out evenly, that it should tell me then 8 groups of what. So I'm going to take the 24 and spread it on out. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. All right, I got to my total of 24 here. So I see that I have 8 groups of 3 joined together would make 24. So the value of this question mark of that variable is 3. Let's look at this one here. I have some groups of 3 equals 15. So I don't know how many groups I have, but I know that it's groups of 3 with a total of 15. So I'm going to make groups of 3 until I have all 15 in their groups, and then I'm going to see how many groups I made. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So it looks like I have 5 groups of 3. So the variable value is 5. 5 groups of 3 equals 15. Now, you'll notice that here I both times use the operation given. Here I did move around my equation, whereas here I did not. That looks like the multiplication I'm used to. Let me show you what it might look like if you used an inverse. So here I had 8 groups of something equals 24. So I'm joining 8 groups of something to give me 24. Well, I can also think about it in the inverse and think, well, if I take 24 and divide it into 8 groups, then I would either then do that, which is kind of what I did, or if I know my multiplication versus division facts, I could know 8 groups of something is 24, so now I'm going to take 24 and divide it into 8 groups of 3. So that's that inverse for you right there. Same idea here is that I could think of some groups of 3 give me 15, so I could just do the reverse here and take 15 divided into 3 groups or groups of 3 to give me 5. So either one of those would work. So those are some examples of multiplication. Now let me give you some examples of division. So this division here, I have 18 divided into some groups of 2. This division looks pretty typical to me. I have the expression on the left, the result on the right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the division here. So I have 18 things divided into some groups of 2. I don't know how many groups to make, but I'm just going to make groups of 2 until I've made it for all 18. So let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So it looks like I made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 groups of 2. So the value of that k variable is 9. I could also use the inverse of multiplication, thinking, well, if I had 18 divided into some groups of 2, well, I could also do what times 2 gives me 18, and that would be 9. So it's really working with whatever operation you're most comfortable with when it comes with using inverses and finding variables for that strategy. It really doesn't matter. Last problem here that we're going to practice. So I have 5 is equal to c divided by 4. Now this doesn't look the way I normally am comfortable with it, so I'm going to go ahead and move this one around. I'm going to take the simple part of the equation and I'm going to move it. So now that looks like the division I'm used to. So now I need to think, okay, well, I'm actually trying to find the dividend. I'm trying to find the total number of objects that were divided into 4 groups of 5. So I'm going to make my 4 groups of 5. And I'm going to think here, well, what was it to begin with? If I joined all those back together and reversed it, oh, it was 5, 10, 15, 20. 20 things were divided into 4 groups of 5. I could also think of the inverse there and think, well, if I'm taking objects into 4 groups of 5, I can then join them back together as 4 groups of 5 gives me something, and I figured out that was 20. So remember, variables is just another way to say it's the unknown value. They can be represented with symbols or letters. And these are some things you might do. You might move the equation around if it doesn't look the way you're used to it or the best way for you to understand it. You can use the operation that is there, or you can use an inverse.